FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. This is the Financial Survival Network with Kerry Lutz, and I'm Kerry Lutz. Today is March 7th, 2018. Well, we just got some great job numbers out of ADP. It looks like the jobs gained during the month, several hundred thousand, around 235,000, if memory serves me correct. Hey, first, as always, be part of the show. Email us at kl@kerrylutz.com. So what are these numbers? Can they get even better? Or are we reaching so-called full employment? I don't know the answer to it, but if you want the answer, go over to askbradwilliams.com. Brad, with us now, and thanks for joining us.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
So we just got a great job number, purportedly from ADP, 235,000 jobs added in the month of February. Can things get any better?
Well, I guess as people start coming out of the woodwork that, they didn't count before, we'll see that. But, things are heating up. There are pluses and minuses to that. Obviously, the pluses are people are working again, so they're being productive. We're also starting to see some inflation issues come up, and one of the issues with full employment is it does put pressure on inflation. So we may see some of that, especially with the low interest rate environment we've been in for so long.
Right. So we know that like the U1, which shows like 4.1%, might even go down this year. But the reason why it's so low in large measure is because people who stopped looking for work or who are no longer on unemployment insurance are now considered not part of the job market, the job population, or jobless. And as a result, we got an artificially low number. Workforce participation rate starting to go up a little bit again after many years of stagnation.
Right.
One of the biggest indicators is new jobless claims, which are hitting all-time lows. So where do we go from here? Are we living in the best of all possible worlds?
Well, we've still got some space to go in that. As these companies are starting to pay their workers more, and that tax cut that came about as part of Trump's plan is giving companies more money, and they're sharing that with their employees, which is good, and making the employees happy and more productive. So we need to, continue to see productivity rise. But again, I'll fall back on the fact that if you go back in history, the more full employment you have, the higher the push on inflation, because you got more people chasing, those, or I should say, jobs chasing people instead of people chasing jobs. So that push comes.
Right. So, and we've seen the inflation rate pop up last month, 0.5%. The consumer price index went up, a first major increase in many years. We can dispute the accuracy of it, but the fact is, it appears that the cost of doing business, salaries, wages are up, and more people working, like you said, it has to result in higher prices at some point of the process, doesn't it?
Yes. The one thing about that, though, is that when you're in your natural cycle, it's not a government-induced raise in prices. It's a natural market. When you go back to even when the tough times of the economy during Obama and the oil boom was going on in the Dakotas, Walmart was having to pay $15 an hour or more to get people to work because they could get better jobs at the oil fields. And it was causing apartments to rise and all because of not having adequate housing for everything. But that's a natural market force that's causing that, and it'll find equilibrium, and it did. The problem is when the government gets involved there and they jimmy with things, there's no natural market equilibrium that gets set. It's this artificial thing, and it's like what you were saying about the workforce participation. And so many people weren't even counted. It's kind of like when you look at your mortgage and you're going to apply for a loan, and the mortgage officer is going, you've been late on your mortgage for the last 9 months and it's pushing your credit rating down. You might want to wait 3 months till that credit rating comes off, and then we can apply and get you a better interest rate. I mean, that's basically what the government is doing, is that you're going to reach a point where you don't count anymore. And then that's what happened.
Right. So where are we heading here? Are we heading to happy times are here again, or what?
Well, I still fall back on the fact we've had a stock market that's been pushed by low interest rates to artificial highs. There are some good things in there. There are some companies with some strong fundamentals. But for the last 8-9 years, the only game in town has been the stock market, and that's pushed that up. And so it's made people feel good, and their 401ks have gotten fatter. But what I see lying ahead is we've got to have a correction. It's due. Some people would debate me on that, and so that's gonna have an effect on the economy from the standpoint of investing. If the companies are if they're bringing the jobs back, then we could get through that with least effect than if the government got involved. So there's some positive things going on, the negative things, and I guess the best thing, what I'd fall back on, is just let it happen and tell the government to just stay out of it.
Yeah, that's easier said than done. I mean,
yes, it is.
A lot of what we're going through now, it could be argued, is the result of government intervention, government faulty or flawed government policies. And how do we get the government to stay out of it?
Yeah, that's the $64,000 question. And you had mentioned the consumer price index, and I think that's real important because it is artificially low. The government has a vested interest in keeping that low because otherwise they got to raise military pay, government worker pay, Social Security pay. If our economy really reflected the cost of doing business as far as a family today, the inflation, I think, would be higher than what they're showing it, and maybe considerably.
Yeah, so many things, like they don't include food, they don't include energy in that rate because
those are the two biggest expenditures of a household, other than a home.
Nuts. And so maybe we need a little honesty from the government as well. Maybe that's too much to hope for, though.
Yeah, it could be. I think the positive aspect of things is that we are seeing jobs come home. We're seeing companies take a vested interest back in the United States because it's in their interest. And you can't fault a company. The president of a company's got a fiduciary responsibility to his stockholders. So if it makes more sense for him to have jobs in other countries for a greater profit for the company, he's doing his job. He's not doing anything evil. He's doing his job. And when you make it easier for him to bring the jobs home, I think they will.
Right, and we can only hope. Initial impressions from the first reactions to the Trump tax plan seem to be favorable, don't they?
That's what I'm gathering. I'm still really deciphering some of how the effect this is going to be for individuals, but from a business standpoint, it's obviously that they feel inclined to give some of that money back to their employees in raises and bonuses. And that's always good because when you treat your employees right, you get greater productivity. When you get greater productivity, you have more profits. So there's more to give back. So it's a cycle.
Yeah, and a number like I think of the 30 Dow Jones Industrial companies, 23 of them were paying rates higher than the new rate. Of course, you have your GEs and other companies that were paying far less. But the fact is, virtually every company that hasn't shunted all of their profits to their overseas subsidiaries, where tax rates are lower, are seeing some benefit from the tax cut.
And that's what I've read as well. And that's good. So there is an advantage, whatever somebody thinks of the president and the way he speaks or whatever. The fact that somebody's coming in there with a business mindset is long overdue for Washington because they just have no clue. I mean, they create the problems and then they create committees and fix the problems and then name the bill that fixed the problem on the people that caused it to begin with, which is convoluted.
Like Dodd-Frank, huh? Perfect example.
You gathered what I was going at.
Yeah, so Dodd-Frank looks like it's going to be modified. It's got pretty much overwhelming support in the Senate, certainly in the House. That's a given. So the scaling back of Dodd-Frank, you think that's going to be like the 1-2 shot for the economy? First taxes, than regulation?
Well, I think we're already seeing regulation help the economy, or I should say reduction of regulation, because that's such a hidden tax that people don't consider that the federal government imposes on us. Because when you got to jump through this hoop and jump through that hoop, fill out this form and make sure this gets done when you hire somebody or have them work, and you're paying money for that, and that's in essence a tax.
Yeah, certainly is. There's a lot of hidden taxes in the economy. What about the president's trade policies? Are we going to see that as a net plus for employment, or will it turn into a negative?
Well, that remains to be seen, because one of the things that I think Trump brings to the table is that he overstates oftentimes his position to stake out a claim at the bargaining table, because he knows what the important thing is, being a businessman, is coming back with the right deal. And the problem when you send all these government people over the last few decades that really don't have a vested interest in the right deal, they just have been tasked to bring home a deal. Well, our trade partners know that. And so they're at the negotiating table saying, how long can I hold out and get everything I can and then give this guy the minimal deal I can so he can go back and hold it up in the sky and say, get off the plane and say peace in our time. And I think that's what's happened with so many trade negotiations, is we had the wrong people going. Now we got a president who understands negotiations. He's staking out a hard claim. It gives him room to come back.
Hey, absolutely. This deal is right out of the book, President's book, Art of the Deal, which I don't know if you read that or not. I read it.
Yes, I have, back in long time ago.
Long time ago, right? But
80s.
It appears that that's the way he works. And when you think that there's so many out there that don't get it and they just go crazy. But, we had these steel and aluminum tariffs recently imposed, and now we're looking at NAFTA maybe, going out the door, perhaps.
Right.
NAFTA's demise, is that a plus or a minus?
Well, it hasn't been great for the American economy. It's been great for some of the other economies and some of the European. We got to realize that China and some of these European countries, they subsidize their industries. And so, not that we don't, but we got to make sure it's an even, or at least as level a playing field as we can. China's terrible about that. They're all about just capturing market share. And it's not even about quality. You can ask most people when they go buy something made in China, it's not that it's high quality, it's just cheap.
Yeah.
Less cost.
Yep, absolutely. And one thing to consider with the trade tariffs and all the trade policy is that the Mexico and Canada have become transshipment points for cheap Chinese goods as well as aluminum. Amen. There's 2 billion pounds of aluminum, Chinese aluminum, sitting in the Mexican desert waiting to get shipped here with no tariff. So all of a sudden it's an uh-oh moment for the Chinese aluminum producers. They've got to figure out another way here, ship to another country, whatever. I don't think that 2 billion pounds of aluminum can easily be moved to another country that has better trade deals with the U.S.
And, what I was saying earlier about regulation and the hidden tax, there's sometimes regulation's good. For example, environmental regulation. We have some very tough environmental regulations. Sometimes we go overboard, but in my lifetime, I've seen I've seen the environment clean up from when I was a kid because of regulations and doing the right thing. Whereas when China, they just do whatever they want. If you talk to anybody who's been to China, the place is nasty. The air's bad because they don't have the environmental regulations, which also means they don't have the cost associated with those environmental regulations. They sell that steel a lot cheaper.
Oh, for sure. You go to China, you can barely breathe. The populace, the Chinese citizens, are not happy about it. It's really, when you get pollution like the Chinese have, it's really a great diminution of the quality of life for those people. And
not to mention future life, because we've seen in our country what happens when you dump chemicals without supervision into the rivers and stuff, and it causes birth defects and things like that. Fortunately, over the last 50 years, we've really addressed that.
Yes, we have, and maybe it's not so much from the government, but pollution is waste. When excess heat comes out of a plant that you don't capture, when fumes go up the chimney, as it were, that results in lowered profits. So the awareness of American industry that we've got to become cleaner and more efficient, it was addressed in two ways. One, companies actually did it. And two, other companies just moved the production to China where there was no pollution control.
Right.
So overall, before the next presidential election, what do you think is going to happen here, Brad?
Well, I think if things keep the way they are, we'll see some decent growth. I'm still thinking that a stock market reversal to a degree is warranted because it's long overdue. When you look at bull and bear market cycles, we're way overdue for a correction. When you look at price earnings ratios, things like that. So, and that affects people in their pocketbook because they feel good when their 401k is going up. And that's one thing that Washington realizes. As long as people open their envelope and their 401k is going up, they tend to ignore other problems. But the people that are getting hurt at this point in time are the retirees who can't afford to take the risk, and they're taking the risk because they can't afford to not make any money.
Right.
And so those on fixed income are really getting killed. In essence, the savers are getting penalized, and the risk takers are getting rewarded.
Yeah, and well, risk takers, you want people taking risks, not reckless risks. Obviously,
right?
It's probably not a good thing for senior citizens to be playing the derivative market, shorting the VIX, things like that. But risk in terms of, do I open a new factory and will I make more money at it? That's the kind of risk you want, investment risk.
Yeah, because that's calculated. And I guess the risk I was talking about is when you've got a 75-year-old retiree who's all in the stock market because he can't get a reasonable rate of return on a good portion of his money at a bank that he used to do. And what I'm seeing in my practice, since I deal with retirees, is the fact that you got a lot more people that are searching for alternatives other than the market because they don't want to go through another 2000 and 2008, and they're afraid of that.
Understandably so. Hey, Brad, we want to find you, connect with you, learn more about what you're doing. Where do we go?
Well, if you got a financial question, just ask Brad Williams. So go to my website, askbradwilliams.com.
Askbradwilliams.com. Hey, got any questions for Brad, myself, and you want to be involved in the show? Email us at kl@kerrylutz.com. The Twitter feed's at Kerry Lutz, and the Facebook page, Financial Survival Network. Brad, thanks so much for taking time to talk with us.
Thank you for having me. I always enjoy it.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.